industry has grown to 100 million. We have over 96 deals, and we have a concentration in a number of sectors: agriculture, ICT, renewable energy. And I think what we're seeing with the SIF funds as well is a dynamism within the sector. But, Nepal has huge ambition. We have an ambition to be, I say we, because I come here so many times, I feel partly I've kind of become an honorary Nepali. So if we have this ambition, 100 million is a great improvement, and especially the 35% of that has come in the last year. The question is, how do we get to the next stage? How do we get to that stage where we can really fortify ourselves as a middle-income country with a vibrant and growing number of sectors? So not only concentrating on deal sizes within the three prominent sectors, but how do we get those other sectors going as well? So I think the part of this panel discussion would be, I think, very enlightening, because we have regulators, we have industry players, we have participants in deals, and we have a prominent development finance institution. So I will try and make this fairly lively, and let our distinguished panelists do most of the talking, which is quite difficult for a person like me. So I would like to just go in order here with Srini, please. So Srini, as a kind of head of investments for BII in Asia, you see a number of countries in the region. How does Nepal compare to those countries for the PVC market? And what makes Nepal stand out? And what can Nepal do to improve? So sorry, it wasn't one question, it was a loaded set of questions, but over to you.
Thank you. First of all, I must thank IIN for inviting us for this panel. I'm Srini, I represent BII for Asia. I sit out of Singapore. So we are, colleagues Habib, Rabi, and I represent the world's oldest DFI, which used to be called Commonwealth Development Corporation, incorporated in 1947. So we have seen cycles of investments over a period of 75 years. Not many institutions can claim what we have done. We have been investing in emerging markets. We continue to be with emerging markets, which is emerging Asia and Africa. Emerging Asia for us is India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Vietnam, Indonesia, Philippines, Cambodia, Laos. So these are the 10 countries we focus in. We are a part of HMG. We are a part of British International Partners, which consists of UK Export Finance, Mobilist, PEDGE, us, and the Department of Business and Trade. And we are one unit delivering HMG to various developing countries. And that's our mandate. We invest British taxpayers' money in emerging markets. And thanks to the ambassador and the FCDO for supporting us over a period of time. First of all, I think institutions like us deliver development impact through various forms. One is indirectly through the funds and the financial institutions where we do directed lending, and directly through debt equity, mezzanine, and other products. We do trade finance. We use our balance sheet very extensively to such an extent we are able to leverage it much better because we have permanent capital on our balance sheet. And we have, this capital has no life. Fundamentally, I think, we have supported private equity and venture capital environment in many countries in Asia and Africa. First of all, I must say that a vibrant private equity and venture capital market is absolutely critical for an emerging market. In that particular regard, if you look at many countries in Asia which are developed over a period of time, look at our neighbors like India, of course, which has now become a behemoth, is fundamentally, I think, in 2004, we remember we started the private equity business in India. What it does is 3-4 things. Number one, it creates a layer of entrepreneurship. It is not dependent on the oligarchs of any country. It creates a layer of the first generation entrepreneur. Second thing is it also gives a certain strata in terms of it elevates what we can deliver in the form of business integrity practices, ENS practices, and the development impact practices very, very necessary for countries. The third important thing it does is it also capital attracts capital. Fundamentally, the ability of this, if you have a well-governed platform which is performing quite well in terms commercially, I'm telling you, you will have a premium. I can't quantify the premium. It can vary anywhere between 25 to 50%, I can say. I've had cases where it is 50% even. Well-governed platforms, when it goes for a strategic buyout, always has a premium compared to normal platforms. So we are a big believer in making sure that countries, emerging markets, have a very vibrant private equity and a venture capital environment. The few other points I would like to mention and close is an active venture capital environment paves the way into private equity. And private equity paves the way. We're talking about venture capital, which does the seed to Series A. Then we got the mid caps, private equity, and we have the large caps. The emergence of the evolution of this particular segment is something which is absolutely necessary. It's more like a baton race, I would say, because one provides an exit to the other. And at the last stage, when the large cap funds do come into the country, they do come and take controlling stakes. The blue-blooded private equity funds are willing to take controlling stakes. The other 2-3 important points here is commercially well-run organizations and well-governed will always attract capital. Even in markets like Nepal. I know there are entry barriers in Nepal, and there are exit barriers we talked about. But I think development institutions like us have a role to play. That's why we bring in patient capital to the table. We also have value-add services. See, we're not just a capital provider. We bring an incremental value to the table. Any particular exercise you take, you got the ENS toolkit, you got the gender toolkit. We have got various toolkits which we want our fund managers to use because it's just not a question of time's money back. It's about building sustainable organizations, which is a part of our agenda, and we are willing to take such risks. Taking risk is a part of our mandate. And then when the private investors do come, we have to exit because I think we pave the way. Otherwise, we're not in the business of crowding out. We are the business of crowding in. And mobilization is a very important part of what we do. Yes, I think what Anup said about the regulations and the ease of doing business is very critical, which I will leave it to my wonderful colleagues to talk about. But final point I want to make here is institutions like us have got differential forms of capital. We got growth capital, we got catalytic capital, we got kinetic capital. The ability of us to leverage these different forms of capital and try and deliver countries what it needs in countries like Nepal is very critical. So my advice to the fund managers is that, look, develop expertise in sectors, bring in demonstrable value to this. Don't treat this as a portfolio investment. You're not a market investor. You're a medium-term investor. You need to have value-add services. And you want equipment, you want to equip yourself in value-add services. We are willing to demonstrably able to bring in value to you. And this is a longer-term game. This is not a short-term game. And evolution of this will take time. But you got to be patient there. I know LPs will expect you to deliver exits, but trust me that we will get there in the journey. You got to be a bit patient on that, and we are willing to be there with you.
Srini, thank you very, very much for that. I think we got a lot of insight from what it is from a DFI perspective that you're looking for in a market and for fund managers. I have the great privilege of introducing Dr. Adhikaria, and thank you very much for taking time out to speak on this panel. As the Executive Director of SEBON, I think a lot has been done recently in improving the enabling environment. But how do you see the growth of this industry going forward? And what other steps do you think SEBON will need to take to enhance that growth? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your interesting inquiries. Yes, SEBON, the Securities Board of Nepal, regulating capital markets for last 32 years. And in the recent years, the PEVC, this from the private sector and DFIs with their initiation and their knowledge on PEVC, they had started this PEVC business for last, I guess, couple of years back. So SEBON, being the capital market regulator, thought that why not to regulate this private initiatives, this business. So with the concern of the DFIs and those who initiated PVCs domiciled in the abroad here, so hearing their voices and their interest, SEBON came up with the specialized investment regulation. This is NPEA, that is 2075. So after the implementation of this regulation, for the last 2 years, the PVC fund managers, they had been registered with the SEBON, and so far there are 13 fund managers registered with the SEBON, and they have come up with the 8 schemes, or say funds, amounting to 30.5 billion NPR. So still with their the other also are interested, and so far they have applied at SEBON for the licensing. That is about 20 fund managers. They are under the licensing process. So with their these initiatives, their these spirits, SEBON is highly encouraged to facilitate them. So now, how SEBON think to facilitate is just to, we are just monitoring their activities, and whether they are just promoting private entrepreneurship spirits, innovation in the country or not. Whether they are filling the gaps that is there in the financial system of this country. That I mean that the big institution, the corporates, they get financing from the banking sector with their sound collaterals. So there are large chunk of corporates, they are SMEs, is they do not have the required collaterals. They are the young population, so they are having their ideas. So they have entrepreneurship spirits and skills, knowledge. So they are deprived of financing. Banking sector financing is they are not lacking the collateral. So we are monitoring their activities, whether they are facilitating these gaps, filling these gaps, whether with their financing, their ideas, their counseling, this youth have benefited. They are thinking rather than going abroad to stay here. So with this, their initiatives and this, they are filling the gaps that in our financial system. So we will be happy to promote them. How we can promote them? We will hear their difficulties, their problems, So we also think that so far the PVC, DFI, or that we were having investment there, they are not registered with the SEBON. So we hope, we want to bring them at our umbrella, that is means in regulatory framework. So how they are, we are considering, so how we can bring them. So we do not think that only the domiciled PVC will be sufficient to promote this industry at the required level, that to fill the gap that is in the system. So we need the PVC domiciled in the abroad as well. So, and how to, the units, whatever there, how to sell these units to them and to bring them in the regulatory framework. So we just want to talk dialogue with them. This is why I am present here today as well. So now in the mutual fund industry, some of our internal experts, they played pioneering role, and now this has been developed as an industry. We are very much encouraged with their spirits, and those who pioneered in the mutual industry, they are also they have also entered in the PEVC industry. So with that track record, we hope they will make breakthrough in this industry as well. So now, in the mutual fund industry, how we encourage, facilitate is that we just time and again as a regulator, we just lobbied to the government of Nepal and asked government of Nepal to consider mutual fund industry, that is fund managers, that is they are to facilitate the channelization of funds. So that is the unit holders are the ultimate beneficiary, they will pay the tax. So these fund managers, they are not supposed to impose the tax. So we just time and again lobbied to the government, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of Finance lastly considered that and provided tax, the considered tax pass-through vehicles to the mutual fund industry, fund manager. So now, with that, if we find this PVC industry is doing that, means for the betterment of the country, betterment of facilitating the gaps, financing gaps to the SME sector, then we will just recommend to the government, Ministry of Finance, in the budget session, that time, that please consider PVC fund manager also as a pass tax through vehicles and not impose tax at that level, just unit holder level. That way, also that this is private, this is specialized investment fund regulation. That is the new initiatives. So maybe there are certain gaps that may not be inducing the foreign domiciled PVC to enter here and to invest here. So if there is gaps, then we'll discuss. And if it is the true gap, then we will just amend the whatever provisions are there that they are discouraging to them. We'll amend the regulation. So that way we'll just encourage and facilitate them. And other in the regulations, we don't think that is the sufficient provisions. So there are different type of funds. So for all funds, so maybe different way to encourage them. So that sort of provisions may be required there. So that will keep and amend the regulations. So this way, and we'll hear. We think this is not too tightly regulate. This industry, those participating in the PVC, they just need to be facilitated. So we'll follow facilitative role rather than imposing them. Facilitate. So in this way, SEBON think to facilitate and encourage PVC, the initiators, those who are involved and those who are going to be involved. So in that way, we think to facilitate and encourage them. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I mean, I think that's a very encouraging message that you're giving, Dr. Adhikaria, that, you know, there are more to be done, more facilitation to be done, and engagement with the industry, engagement with a wider set of stakeholders. And I think we heard a lot about what's been happening on the CIF fund and the need to evolve as regulators. So I think it's very encouraging words. So I think I would like to now go to Mr. Basnet, Director of the Department of Industry, because the DOI has recently introduced regulations for establishing investment companies for investment. And I think this is very interesting. It's separate from SIF. So could you just very briefly outline the key aspects of these regulations and perhaps how you see they might impact on the PEVC sector?
Thank you. As you see, the Department of Industry is largely responsible for the, administrations of the industry in Nepal. So if we see, because administrations of industry means there is investment. Where there is industry, there is investment. So we see the lot of paradigm shift in our way of doing things. I would like to say that we are in industrial investment 3.0. That is my own saying. That means that we are in the time of promoting investment in the industry. So that means if we see the industrial development in Nepal, we have different regulations like the Industrial Enterprises Act and Foreign Direct Investment and Technology Transfer Act. It happens in early 1980s. At that time, we more focus on the licensing regime of the industry, licensing for the industries and all those things. And after 90s, we reformed as an industrial investment 2.0. We more focus on the regulations of the industry, and recently we are focusing in the promotions of the industry. That was seen in our legal instrumental changes, institutional capacity development changes, and all those things. My point is, if you see, we realize that small and medium scale industries, SMEs, are the backbone of the economy. So recently we are formulating some policies to regulate these industries, to promote these industries. And as we see that we start to do the startup funding to the startup, and also the private equity. I just want to recall that when Business Oxygen comes to get approval in the DOI, at that time I was working over there, we didn't have any legal instrument how to handle this private equity fund investment. So at that time, our FITA was also very brief. There was no any regulation supported to that act. And by working with the learning by doing things, with the consultations with the investors and all those things, we came up with some ideas and we make to happen that. And really in Nepal, it is started one breakthrough in the private equity investment in Nepal. And today we are in this point due to the effort of all these things. And recently we formulate one, it's not the regulations, it's sort of, gazetted notifications for the DOI, how to regulate the investment company. That happens because there was a mushrooming of the investment company. At that point, we are not up to that capacity level. What is investment, how to regulate it, and there was no any other competent agencies to handle all those things. So it comes to the DOI to regulate it. If we see the provisions over there, we are more focused with the foreign direct investment related, investment company. So on that, we try to facilitate the, if you see our FDI laws, you can entitle to invest in almost all sectors with 100% of equities. Only there is a limited negative list industries in Nepal. So at that time, government is also try to regulate with some real estate investment by the foreign direct investment because of small country and all those things. So in that context, we started the regulations. So I came to know today there is what threshold we put over there is not as favorable for the private equity investment, because at that time we started to do the regulations. So these sort of forums, we will get the feedback from the investors, what is the difficulties and other things. So we will take it into our considerations for the necessary improvement in our regulations, act and all those things. Yes, I know that new FITAs and Industrial Enterprises Act, we came with a lot of provisions, but still I know that there is a lot of provisions that is not as favorable to the investors. Because the things happens that sometimes we anticipate that if we put these provisions, these sectors will be get more control or more regulated or more promoted. But sometimes when we'll do the practical operational things, then we come up with these are the good initiatives what we are taken, and these are the drawbacks of this law. And that is the course of amendment of all these laws, and we will do it regularly. I think there is some points we have to, we appreciate it. It is really facilitate these private equity and venture capital things. And there is some points we need to took it into the considerations for the amendment. So I want to conclude that if we see today, our whole focus is to promote the startup, whole focus was to promote the venture capitalist, protect the equity investment, and that is our focus of Ministry of Industry and Commerce and Supply. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bassett. I think that's, again, an encouraging statement. You don't always hear that around the world, of regulators who are willing to listen, who understand that the policy environment needs to evolve, that there are things that need to be done, and there will be incremental steps to do that. I think that's a very encouraging statement for all of us here to hear that. So let me move on, if I know we're very tight for time. And we've got the fund manager's perspective. So Nikita, I'm going to ask you a question I'm sure you get asked all the time. So I'm sure you can answer this very quickly. Because I'm sure in dinners and things like this, people always ask you, which sectors in Nepal do you think hold the most potential for the PVC sector, and why?
I think the report that was just published, that Sabrina presented, it has all the answers, all the $104 million where it has gone to. I think it definitely addresses the key sectors. So obviously for Nepal, there are some core sectors that we specialize in, right? Like renewable energy, we've got agriculture, tourism, the sectors that Nepal is famous for. And honestly, I do think that being in the sector for such a long time and meeting so many businesses and entrepreneurs from different, variety of them, I do think that there are a lot of untapped sectors as well, which we do not talk about, because even us as PEVC, we have not been able to generate investment opportunities for them. So I think, firstly, I would like to emphasize the importance of bringing in more varieties or more players in the ecosystem for PEVC players with different investment strategies, so that some could be more blended finance, some could be more concessional, some could be more early stage, later stage, some could have a longer life. So with that, I think we can cater to a lot of more opportunities than what we are actually doing at this point of time. So I think that is one point. The other thing is for Dolma, we have, our first fund was a sector agnostic fund. So as we started investing back in 2015, we did realize that the sectors that did provide a lot of investment opportunities here were healthcare, renewable energy, and technology. Technology definitely came as a surprise to us, but then it did establish as a very strong sector, and today also, in the report also, you can see there's been a big chunk of investment towards IT. So that is there. So with that learning, we moved on to Fund 2 with these three sectors as our core investment sectors, and with our future funds, we are definitely trying to go more towards sector-focused funds. So advantages of such sector focus is definitely like, it's not because these are the only three sectors that has opportunities. That is because for us as fund manager, for us as investors, we do love to develop expertise in that sector. So that for us, we are not just investors, we are partners, we are a part of the team. So we'd love to add more and more value as we move on. So like, we do think that from our first fund to our second fund, it's been a big learning journey, and we've been able to give in a lot to our portfolio companies. So I think gaining that sector expertise helps the fund managers. So that is the reason why we do have a lot of sector focus, and that is the reason why a lot of times we have to say no to a lot of sectors that we are not mandated or focused on. But having said that, there are a lot of new sectors that we want to try, like manufacturing, agro-processing, logistics. So like, I would want to say that Nepal is not just limited to a few sectors, the sectors that you see in the list. There are a lot of untapped sectors, and I think with more varieties of PE and VC funds, with different investment opportunities and strategies, I think we can untap a lot of more sectors going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the message I get from you, and it's beautifully and politically correct in terms of avoiding the saying, stating who are the winners, is that there are opportunities across all sectors. And I think one of the things that we're hearing is it's not just about money. You know, fund managers are not just there for money. And I think that's very important, and often investees misunderstand that and misunderstand the value add that funds can provide. So I think that's a very interesting answer. So we've gone all the way through, and what we're left with was the investee. And we have Mr. Ketan here, who I think needs no introduction. I think everyone knows who he is. And you know, one of the interesting things that Nikita said is that they're looking at new sectors, and looking at a diversity of sectors. And you know, your group has a huge diversity of sectors. So as a corporate group, with direct investments in a whole variety of industries and sectors, it's a kind of interesting question I'm going to ask you. Why is the PEVC route an option for you?
Thank you. Well, some 7-8 years ago, one of my colleagues, my old friend, Dr. Manish Thapa, whom I see here, came back from Costa Rica. As you know, that I've been into all sectors of financial market. And being in the financial market, it was never a buzzword for me. He came out, said, let's do private equity. I said, okay, let's start. Thus, I was close to the word private equity, PEVC, venture capital, you know. And when we started this, the barrier was, with due respect to you, sir, Sebon. It took almost 1 year and plus. By the time a lot of flair, you know, a lot of sentiments had settled down. But in any case, the market, as we all discussing now, is very vibrant. There's a huge, huge scope. And we, as a corporate, as a recipient or as an investor, from both sense, I can promise you that Nepal is a glorified and will glorify more in terms of private equity and venture capital. But I support and endorse that not only money, it needs some technical backup. It needs, in real sense, being a venture capitalist. It needs, suppose a single idea comes out and may require money, or probably some value addition in terms of technical assistance, or to some help to look for a market, or to specialize into a packing whereby the vendors can go to one supply chain and can go to blockchain. So in the whole sense that Nepal and Nepalese have a great sense of entrepreneurship. Be in Nepal, be in India and be anywhere. Now, the whole word of equity, venture capital, PEVC, and the need which our young entrepreneurs are needing, I think we need to just match. And that's what we all are here. And impact for Nepal, I think that's a great phenomenon to start with.
Well, thank you for that. If I may ask a follow-on question, because I think it's very interesting. We rarely get a voice like yours in the room, so I think it'll be very interesting for the audience to just get a sense. You know, what motivated you to invest in PVC funds? You know, I know you have a connection.
For me, in personal sense, I'm only into financial market. You name it, I'm there. In the same line, private equity was a new word for me, new business for me, new philosophy for me, new ideology, in fact, that I've been investing for my grandfather's time. That is also private equity, but was to form a company, to take the responsibility of the management. But now I'm out of the management. I'm out of getting rid of liabilities and interest-paying burden, you know. Just equity, wherever the market is, invest and get out from it. Simple. And being a senator of Kathmandu University, what I sense, what I feel, what I have seen, what I have been motivated, that these young people in our universities at the top level are really seeking private equity for the brain they have, for the feeling they have, for the sense of business they have, for the encouragement of doing business, which they are backed with the universities, you know. So in that sense, I think I am motivated.
Thank you very much. I'll leave the last question, and I'll hand over the mic if you need to, Srini. I think, you know, we hear a lot about DFIs and their interest and the impact story. But, you know, it's really good for PVC funds to hear it from the horse's mouth, as it were. You know, in a few moments, what are the key actions that PVC funds in Nepal, in your opinion, need to take, besides the ones that already have DFI investment, to further foreign investment? So what kinds of things do you want to see and you would like to see to kind of broaden the spectrum and get more DFI investment in?
I think, look, I can answer this question in 10 minutes, but I'll take just 2 minutes. There are 4 or 5 things I want to say. Number one, to my colleagues from the government system, exit track record is very important. You got to facilitate exit track record, because for investors like us to come in, unless there is a conducive environment for exit track record, the ability for us to put further money in the same funds or new funds is getting that much more difficult. And for us to come in on a foreign direct investment into direct investing is also that much more difficult. So you have to play a dominant role, and I'm so glad that you made all the positive noises, both of you, and you know, it'll be great to translate that. Number two, I think we have to ensure that fund managers have to have some sector specialization. Don't be generalist. Stop this generalist, get specific on sectors. You can be slightly broader on sectors. I mean, the economy is small enough for you to keep it broader, but get much more sector. Where fund managers internationally have made money is replicability of the model. Replicability of the model have made money internationally. It's an easy, it's more like a low-hanging fruit for you. So it's something you should try and do. The third thing is you're building something for the longer term. Sustainability and making returns is important. For institutions like us, just making 2 times money or 10 times money, nobody will pat on my back if I do not build sustainable organizations in Nepal. Just taking money out and not building sustainable organization is not a part of our agenda. So we want to be supportive in you, and that helps the exit environment for more foreign investors to come. The last point I just want to make here is that, look, it is, you know, the more fund managers are coming into the country, the more we want to encourage. The first generation entrepreneurs will come, and we really want to encourage. But I think it's extremely important for the existing funds who are moving into Fund 2 and Fund 3 to establish a track record of having done successful investments, attracted more and more capital and delivered exits. That is a very important part of what we do in terms of investing further. And for us, fund managers are like our extended arms. And they are there to deliver our mission, because we can't be delivering our mission alone. We need you to deliver our mission. So we're willing to definitely come forward and work with you in this regard.
Thank you very much. And a very succinct answer to a very broad question. I appreciate that very much. But I would like to thank each and every one of our panelists for their very interesting observations, their suggestions, and the discussion. So thank you very much to all of them.